Hello, welcome to another episode of Namtaro Talks. Today's episode will be about the social contract. I first learned of this term, admittedly, in my U.S. history class in 8th grade. I do not have the clearest definition of it, but looking it up with my most basic understanding, it is defined as when a group of people agree to give up certain rights and accept a central authority in order to protect other rights. So, general rule of thumb, it's like you put your trust in a central government or authority that they will help keep the social order, that they'll keep you safe, that they will protect you, that they'll treat you with respect and dignity and give you certain rights. So long story short, it pretty much stems from trust, that the general populace, they put the trust in the ruling figure, the authority figure, the government, that the government will at least look out for them, like help them out, not necessarily 100% take care of them or help them with every single problem in their lives, but kind of keep the social order and kind of serve as a backup plan or safety net, or at least provide amenities, for people to find their way through society and thrive and have a purpose and make a living through a social contract. The government is supposed to help you help you get a means of education that is affordable and reasonable and gives you the knowledge and skill set necessary to survive in the current world and society and economy. It also tries to help that the economy and the job market is as reasonable and as prosperous as possible. That everyone with a real skill set, they have a place in the world, they are contributing to society, that they're either making a goods or providing a service, that they have a decent standard of living, a decent wage, enough to eat, enough for a place to stay at, and entertainment as appropriate, even provide transportation if needed, like public transportation that is safe and affordable. Of course, the nature of the course of life is that sometimes unexpected things pop up and sometimes they are unfortunate and undesired. Like nobody asked to get laid off or be destitute or get sick, But the thing with the social contract is that the government gives you a safety net, like a fallback plan, like a just in case thing to help you out for a little while with reasonable resources to help you get on your feet, And it also helps those in vulnerable situations, such as, for example, new parents. Imagine juggling a work-life balance with a new member of your family, and that new member, they are very dependent, very resource and attention heavy. I mean, a social contract should at least allow those new parents a means to, I don't know, to get by, to have the time and resources and energy and help out somehow. That they are not completely on their own, that they are at the whim of the niceness of their family and friends and neighbors. I mean, those people, they can only help out so much, but a social contract will allow for at least some maternity leave and paternity leave to guarantee that your income is not completely lost and that you have time to spend with the child and your family to check their milestones and their growth and development without having to stress out where the next paycheck will come from. The social contract should also ensure that the citizens are safe from the lawbreakers and ne'er-do-wells in society, and also from foreign resources that are trying to oppress or detract from our way of life. The ne'er-do-wells are the miscreants and the criminals who choose to break the laws, who choose to break the social contract and disrupt the peace of other law-abiding citizens who are just trying their best to get by. They are the ones who are stealing and abusing the system and try to get more than their own deserved fair share. The social contract should allow us to find those individuals accordingly and punish them accordingly because they are not, quote unquote, playing by the rules like everyone else is. They are not contributing to society. They are disrupting the peace. They are disrupting the safety and the well-being and the peace of mind of the fellow citizens. Social contracts should also ensure that businesses are conducted fairly, that workers, they have their own rights and can unionize as needed without being exploited or underpaid, and that corporations do not get out of hand and pay their fair share of taxes and do not turn into monopolies. Of course, the social contract is not only a one-way street. It's like that one John F. Kennedy speech, like, ask not what your country can do for you, also ask what you can do for your country. Yeah, so it's not like you expect everything in the government, that you're a giant freeloader and abuse every single resource or program it has. Social contract ensures that the citizen pays their dues in society, like gets their education, gets their job, helps out in the community, pays their taxes. Of course, the taxes have to be fair and reasonable and not exorbitant, and need to be seen to be directly contributing to the community. Like that one saying back in the day, no taxation without representation. And ideally, the taxes should be transparent. Like, okay, this money is going to the schools, this money is going to that bridge, this money is going to that road, or there's a food assistance program or whatnot. With more transparency through the taxes, you wouldn't have situations where politicians are using that tax money for their own personal gain. And also, if everyone follows a social contract, we would reduce the risk of egregious lawsuits and situations and violations of civil rights where that taxpayer money would have to be paid out as a settlement to the victims and the aggrieved. The social contract is like a cooperation or compromise between the government and the citizenry. Thus, by following the social contract, the average citizen should at least be along a path where they are somewhat better than before, that they're improving their standard of living, that they're getting, like making their way up through society. Not necessarily always monetarily, but it provides them with a purpose, that they're getting intelligence and self-actualization. The amenities through the social contract provided by the government offers for convenience and amenities, and the citizens, they have the knowledge of building more critical thinking and more logic, so it's more an educated populace and more sensible, that both the government and the citizens, they act on common sense, that it helps the citizens find the balance between individualism and collectivism, that they embrace, but materialism with moderation, and that they only care about what other people think enough, like they shouldn't be super obsessed about it. Only once a social contract has been established can the average citizen even consider things such as purpose and honor, and develop an imagination and have hope for a future, and explore what the world has to offer, explore beyond their country. The purpose being like, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm meant for, this is my place in life, and I'm willing to affirm it, I'm willing to find it, I'm willing to stand by it, and I'm willing to help others do the same. And also honor, like I do this for myself, for my family, for my community, for my country. It's like the difference between patriotism and nationalism, it's like you can be proud of where you're from, but you're not like blindly proud of it. Not like, oh, where I'm from, it's super good no matter what they do, no matter what the government does. It's like there's room for improvement, and I'm willing to work with them, as long as they're willing to work with me. That's what the social contract should be. I know I am not a political science major, and that I may not have the best public speaking skills in order to articulate these points, but the reason that I felt compelled to do a talk like this is because I've observed the social contract in different societies and countries that I visited, and okay, so you already know I'm from America, and you can't help but compare when you visit other countries. I am not saying that other societies and countries are better or perfect. I'm just saying that each country and society, they have a lot to learn from each other. They have at least take the benefits from one another and integrate it into their own country, Yeah, not every society is perfect. Not every government is perfect. Yeah, there's a lot of drawbacks and corruption still, unfortunately. But it is not all that, There's too many ways for the average citizen and middle class to thrive and interact and form communities and bonds and feel involved and included, like you're a part of something bigger. Two examples that I would like to go with are transportation and safety. Yes, to the other places I travel to, there are definitely more means and conveniences regarding transportation, especially public transportation. There's also more means for like subways or buses or rideshare programs. because that's how society functions. People, they have to go from one place to another, and they need to access their amenities and their stores and their businesses in an easy, convenient way that is not too resource consuming or time consuming. And hey, guess what? If you walk from one place to another, that's exercise too. And this should be relatively affordable and clean and safe. Like, you step out and you hop on one thing and you get to the strip mall, or you get to the convenience store, or you get to your university, or you get to your employer, or you get to the restaurant or the park to meet your friends and whatnot. I mean, cars are great, and there are a time and place for them, and they have their own convenience. But society shouldn't be super car dependent, that everywhere is giant parking lots and strip malls and stroads and highway interchanges, because it takes up a lot more space and a lot more resources. And pretty much, you don't have a car, you're screwed. Like, you're stuck at home. You can't go anywhere. You can't get your groceries. You can't go to work. You can't go to school. Or maybe you can, but doing that stuff online, I mean, it reduces the human interaction, and it's not sustainable. I mean, people got along before there was like internet access and conveniences like all that. Like storefronts and businesses and cafes and restaurants. Like, that involves people, but that requires availability. Like, you gotta see people walking back and forth. You gotta let people know that the business, the store, the amenities, like the fun stuff, the stands, the farmer's market, it's there right in front of you. Rather than like, oh, I gotta like hop in my car and get out of my suburban neighborhood and take the freeway and then go to the strip mall and then park it and then finally walk to the store, get a shopping cart, and then finally grab all the stuff I need, then load up that car and lug it all home. Yeah, so of course the downsides of without the car is that you have to carry everything by hand. But then it teaches you to, I don't know, grab stuff in moderation as a need, like on an as needed basis. So it's not very wasteful, That takes me to my next point of safety. Like, social contract, it should be allowed for the average citizen to do their business. Okay, you know what I mean. Like, go about their everyday life, go to work, go to school, go out to eat, go shopping, hang out with friends, go to the park in peace. Like, they don't have to worry about getting robbed, getting mugged, getting attacked, getting raped, getting killed. Like, it's like just common decency, It's like there's an honor system behind it. I mean, you can pass the strictest laws, but at the very core of it, if human psychology feels like they are not part of something bigger or more important, that the laws aren't enforced, that they can get away with it, that the other people who are following the rules like can't do anything to them, it only emboldens more entitlement, more criminal behavior, more disturbing the peace, and it's all very unnecessary. And not to mention white-collar crimes. Like, it allows for more bribery and insider trading and violations of workers' rights and consumer rights, or even abuses of the justice system. I know sometimes the news sensationalizes what goes on, but however, if you're a complete outsider and you just look at America and you follow the news cycle, I mean, your impression is that you can get attacked or killed like unprovoked, or after only a minor escalation for no apparent reason, after no fault of your own. And there are so many outlandish crime situations in the news, But it's all very petty. It's all unnecessary. Like, you couldn't have the citizens in a better mental state or a better position in life. Like, you couldn't have a better means to talk it out and mediate. Like, you never learn about conflict resolution. Like, over the years, many news stories have stuck with me, such as the jogger girl who was killed by that illegal immigrant, or the groom who was killed by some gangsters who interrupted his wedding. And like, he didn't even know those guys. Or a man shot literally hours after just landing in Chicago. And nothing against Chicago. I don't know much about it. I have never been there. But just based on the news, I mean, I'm very sure Chicago or cities similar to it, they don't want a reputation like that. Not to mention all the mass shootings and the stand your ground laws and the home invasions and attacking the Asian elderly in the street. Yeah, I know these are all crimes, but where's the social contract in that? Like, it should have been prevented in the first place. The laws should have been stricter. The authorities and police should have been there faster. They should have thrown the book at those criminals. So to ensure that stuff like that never happens again, or it should have happened in the first place. And the stand your ground law, sometimes that's the thing about the justice system. It can be warped or misinterpreted for own selfish reasons. Like, how do you determine that someone is a threat? How do you determine that you're really protecting your property? Like, what if someone's just going their own business, but unfortunately, the dead, they cannot testify. They cannot justify their actions or provide reasons. Sometimes they even punish the accused, or they punish the people who are marginalized or who need the laws to help them out. Like, for example, like with the Roe v. Wade situation being overturned, like, abortion is supposedly left up to the states, but then those states, they can really crack down on abortion and make it legal. But unfortunately, in some of those places, abortion, it has a negative stigma, and it's not fair to be like associated with women's health and gynecology and miscarriages and situations like that, because like sometimes situations popped up and you gotta take into the account the health of the parties involved. But if someone's like super tied up in litigation and laws and like, oh my god, I don't want to do this operation because I'm afraid I might break their law and I get in trouble. But doctor, I need this to be done or else I may die. And then it's those little split-second decisions that can determine life or death. And also in the news, I couldn't believe it when I saw the news article saying that the landlord was calling the police on the squatters because the squatters exploited some kind of law that lets them stay there for extended periods of time without paying. And somehow the landlord got arrested. I mean, what sense is that? Because a landlord depends on their tenants to pay rent. And tenants are supposedly the ones who signed the lease, right? But if someone's occupying a place and didn't sign a lease and not paying rent, and that's like, they're the one in the wrong, not the landlord. So why is the landlord in trouble or being arrested or in trouble with the law when they call out the squatters or the unwanted tenants about it? And when the Supreme Court made their decision in the Citizens United case, they pretty much said that giving money is a form of free speech and that corporations are people. Well, if that's the case, then the majority of the American populace, they can't talk that well. And also with like unlimited money, it really changes the incentives of the politicians because they are beholden to their donors, not the citizens, not the average American, not their populace. Yeah, I said average American, but you know what I mean. I'm talking about the people that they are supposed to govern, that they're supposed to represent and help out and look out for and stick up for. With unlimited money, it is very corrupt. The politicians are blinded. And I know the death penalty is a controversial topic, and I will not necessarily lay an opinion on this, but it's really usually regarded towards criminals. Ideally, a criminal, you would want them to somehow reform and rehabilitate and get treated as a human being and reintegrate into society. They should have a chance to repent and realize how sorry they are and learn the error of their ways and fix their behavior. Not necessarily brainwash, but like a fair chance, not just being thrown into an industrial complex. Yeah, that's another thing. There's so many industrial complexes. It's like you don't want to solve the problem. You just want to keep the problem around enough in order for you to have a job and make money. And I know there's sympathy and human rights towards certain criminals, but that good faith can only go so wrong because there's a fair amount of those who they don't want the help. They are ungrateful of the help. That we are wasting our resources just to keep them alive, But I know it's a touchy subject and you gotta kind of distinguish one from the other. Not to mention you gotta figure out who's truly a criminal, who actually has like mental issues that need to be resolved, or even worse, who's wrongfully convicted, So you gotta figure out how to clear those convictions and get it expunged off their records. And what about those whose actions uproot the natural order or devastate entire communities, such as the bankers in 2008 who handed out home loans willy-nilly with super low interest rates to pretty much anybody, thus pretty much causing the 2008 financial crisis, and that required like a government bailout or else like the economy would pretty much tank. However, those bankers, they never were accounted for their actions. They never got their just desserts or were punished accordingly. And oh my God, don't get me started about the Sackler family, who pretty much like enabled the entire opioid epidemic that allowed for the deaths of tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds or a million people. That they were just like kept pushing opioids, and causing addiction and withdrawal and devastating communities and like destroying families. And they never got their just desserts. They never got punished accordingly. I mean, they kept negotiating for a settlement or a fine, or it's just a couple $1 billion. What's a couple $1 billion for to someone who's like super rich? That they can just part ways with that amount of money because they're left with a few $1 billion left. $1 billion is a lot. 100 million is a lot. Even the tens or millions of dollars is a lot. So it's like a drop in the bucket. Honestly, a punishment, it should hurt. It should teach you a lesson to never do that again, or teach others to never do what you did, because you gotta learn from your mistakes. Others gotta learn from your mistakes. Otherwise, everyone would just keep repeating the past and repeating the same mistakes until eventually society is one giant mistake. And of course, there's also the disastrous Prop 47 in California, where if you steal something that was worth under $950, it's just a misdemeanor, a slap on the wrist. Like, you get arrested for a little bit, then they let you back out. But of course, those people, they're like, oh, that's it? That's not that big a deal. I can do it again. I just don't, I'll not get caught. And then they embolden their peers to do it. And then businesses are like upended and destroyed. Communities are in a flux, and everyone fears for their safety. And hopefully that law has been rectified by the recent Prop 36. But such a rule in the first place, that was ridiculous. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. Like, honestly, no one should be stealing or harming others or disrupting others' peace, period. Like, everyone has a right to their own business, to their own safety. And if you disrupt that, if you disrupt their physical safety or their peace of mind, like, such individuals, they should be held accountable. They should be punished accordingly. But of course, we still have the 8th Amendment, so nothing cruel or unusual. But the punishment must fit the crime. The punishment must detract them and others from ever doing the same thing again. Which brings me next to my next point. The social contract in America, it is nowhere near perfect. It has been frayed and deteriorating for years. And with the current administration, it is very painfully obvious. Yeah, they have made their intentions known from the very beginning, and they warned us, but there are those who still trusted them, who still let this happen, or even wanted to happen against their own interests. There are those who are even denying that's happening, but it's happening. They are uprooting like traditions and institutions, and just firing people left and right, firing heads of departments, trying to install loyalists, pretty much throwing the country into chaos and confusion and dysfunction. And they could care less. They're selfish. They're narcissistic. They only want to, cozy up to their billionaire donors. They could care less about the general populace. Long story short, they are breaking the social contract. And their ramifications and repercussions, they're huge. Like job safety, or physical safety at jobs, like worker protection, consumer rights, education, literally not every, but most aspects of society are under threat. And it didn't need to be this way. Yes, our society was never perfect to begin with, but there was always room for improvement. There's always room for reform, and there was room for a healthy dialogue and discussion without so much bureaucracy, without so much ego and narcissism, necessary for compromise based on evidence-based research. But I really don't want that to be like a thing of the past, There has to be room for civility and discussion, information and experimentation and efficiency of new ideas, especially ideas that have worked in other countries, other societies. I mean, we don't have to copy it like word for word, copy paste, but integrate it and utilize it in a way that fits our society, But of course, uphold certain traditions that have been like proven like tried and true. Yeah, it's not changed completely everything, but it's not just let everything go to waste, let everything decay, let everything rot. Like, we can still protest, we can still voice our discontent, we can still contact our government officials, and we can still do whatever is within our control, within our family and friends and social circles and community. And honestly, we are lucky to be in a position to at least still do so, because other situations in the past, every sort of thought like this, it would have been immediately stamped out or suppressed, or people would have literally been killed just during protesting, you know? Yeah, I'm not calling for like a big revolution or anything, but I am calling to voice that loudly, that the status quo is not acceptable, and it hasn't been for the longest time, and there is room for improvement. Because at the very end of the day, the social contract starts with humanity, because it is ruled by all humans. It is the humans in the government that rule the humans of the populace, but not necessarily rule. Like, they keep each other's interests at heart, that they work together. Like, the populace say, okay, I'll follow the laws and pay the taxes and help out this and that. Well, you provide these resources for me and allow representation and use the taxes to do this and that. It comes down to trust and humanity at the very end of it. Yeah, we have to go forward and put humanity first. Yeah, you see what I did there? Just kidding. Well, anyways, I mean, I know this talk, it was all over the place, and I'm not the most qualified person to talk about it. But then again, I'm not qualified to talk about anything. I just keep justifying that in every episode. But regardless, thank you for listening to me talk, and I'll see you in the next episode.